If one company pulled the plug tonight, hospitals would fail, supply chains would freeze, and military operations could go dark. It's not Google or Microsoft, it's Palantir Technologies. While everyone was distracted by ChatGPT writing essays and emails, Palantir became the hidden operating system behind the US military, the UK's NHS, and critical infrastructure across the West. People might think Palantir is just a creepy data company. It's not. Palantir doesn't want your data, it wants to run the real world. And the terrifying part, it already does. Chapter 1. The 48-Hour Collapse. It might sound dramatic, but Palantir has the ability to cripple nations. In the UK, Palantir is woven into the very fabric of the country's public healthcare infrastructure. If they pulled their software, hospital administrators lose access to critical emergency systems that allow them to control the flow of patients. Clinics would lose their ability to predict risk, prioritize patients, and move people through care fast enough to save lives. Staff would be forced to fall back on slower electronic health record systems as waiting rooms filled and pressure mounted. Meanwhile, major shipping ports and logistics hubs across the world would begin to choke. Essential goods like groceries would face massive delays. Routing optimization would break down, causing global chaos. Even in combat zones, the effects would be felt. Tactical intelligence streams would freeze, leaving frontline commanders blind to incoming threats. They would be unable to plan an effective response. People's lives would be in immediate danger. But first, we want to thank the sponsor of today's video, World of Warships. Have you ever wanted to command some of the most iconic warships in history? World of Warships is a free-to-play tactical naval combat game where you take control of destroyers, cruisers, battleships, aircraft carriers, and submarines, each with its own role, strategy, and playstyle. And right now is the perfect time to jump in because World of Warships is celebrating the 250th US anniversary with a special Independence Day event. From June 17th through July 15th, players can battle through history, earn exclusive rewards, and celebrate American naval heritage through historical paintings, narrative stages, and reward videos. What I really like is how easy it is to get started. You can jump into battles with friends, choose a ship that fits your style, and work with your team across maps with detailed ships, realistic water effects, dynamic weather, and updated visuals that make every battle feel huge. During the event, each week has its own progression track, and you can earn progress just by playing. Plus, if you play one battle during Update 15.5, you'll unlock a free anniversary bundle in the Armory with the Tier 10 Independence Camouflage, the Betsy Ross Destruction Effect, and 3 Independence Event loot boxes. New and returning players can use invite code USA250 to claim rewards like 1 million credits, 7 days of premium, 500 doubloons, Stars and Stripes camo, the premium cruiser USS Albany, and the premium destroyer USS Smith. Then after 10 battles, you can choose between the South Carolina, St. Louis, or Wicks. And for naval history fans, Naval Legends Cruisers is back on Kickstarter with exclusive items and a USS Indianapolis foil ship card if you wishlist before the campaign launches. So celebrate 250 years of independence by joining the fleet. Click the link in the description and use invite code USA250 to start playing World of Warships for free today. This is just a taste of how far Palantir's tendrils spread. It underscores the unprecedented level of power and influence this company has amassed behind the scenes, because so many people still misunderstand what this company truly is. They think it's some sort of rogue data broker, a shadowy entity lurking in the background of the internet, vacuuming up private information and selling it to the highest bidder. But that is not what makes Palantir dangerous. Palantir is, in fact, much more of an interpreter than a collector. It's not in the business of owning, storing, harvesting, or even monetizing consumer data in the traditional sense. Instead, it builds the structural pipelines, algorithmic engines, and advanced user interfaces that allow businesses to understand the vast and complicated databases they collate. That matters more than you might think, because we live in an increasingly data-oriented world. One that has passed a critical threshold, the complexity point of no return. The systems that modern society relies on to keep billions of people alive have become so complex that we can no longer manage them alone. There's simply too much data to deal with. That is the vacuum Palantir has stepped into. Sure, it doesn't own that data, but it does own the software that makes it readable, manageable, and useful. It built something most governments and corporations realized they couldn't function without, a system capable of making sense of chaos. This, in turn, helped it become one of the most powerful companies on the planet, and it all began with one of the worst intelligence failures of all time. Chapter 2. The 9/11 Ghost. To understand how this invisible system embedded itself deep inside the Western world's infrastructure, we have to go back to one of the darkest days in modern history, September 11, 2001, the day of the deadliest ever terror attack, when almost 3,000 lives were lost. In the wake of the World Trade Center's collapse, one all-important question echoed throughout the halls of newsrooms, government offices, and intelligence agencies. Could the attack have been prevented? U.S. intelligence agencies had all the data they needed to find out exactly what the terrorists had planned. In the days and weeks leading up to the attack, the NSA had intercepted communications involving known operatives. The FBI had field notes about suspicious individuals attending flight schools. The CIA had obtained numerous pieces of intelligence that effectively laid out the entire plot. They knew terrorists were considering using planes as weapons. They knew Osama bin Laden was planning a massive attack. And intelligence agencies had even identified some of the future hijackers weeks before 9/11 happened. The clues were all there, but they couldn't connect the dots. There were too many. Analysts at the FBI could see one piece. The CIA saw another. Nobody was able to put everything together and understand the magnitude of what was about to happen until it was too late. The failure wasn't down to a lack of intelligence, but a lack of integration. If the various agency systems had been better connected, thousands of lives might have been saved. That sort of thing couldn't be allowed to happen again. A solution had to be found. Enter Palantir. Founded by Alex Karp, Peter Thiel, and a small team of engineers, the company set out to create a system that could pull fragmented signals into one single environment. A system that could integrate enormous amounts of data from different sources into a single platform. Users would have a godlike view of whatever they were analyzing. All of a sudden, spotting patterns and mapping networks was easier than it had ever been. But catching terrorists was just the beta test. The real breakthrough was figuring out how to make a computer understand the physical world. Chapter 3. The Digital Twin. What is the ontology? Behind Palantir Technologies' rise is a deceptively simple idea called the ontology. And to understand why it matters, you first need to understand the corporate world's favorite solution to overwhelming information: the data lake. Aptly named, it is like a vast digital reservoir where companies can effectively dump all their data. It doesn't matter where it comes from, what format it's in, or whether it is structured or unstructured, it all just goes into the lake. That can include everything from server logs to social media data, images, videos, text files, financial databases, and much more. And that comes with obvious limitations. Data lakes are great for storing massive amounts of information, but the moment you actually try to use that data, everything starts to break down. Because most data lakes eventually become data swamps. They're murky and they're messy, made up of millions of rows of text and numbers, but without any explanation of what those symbols mean. Palantir wanted to change that, so it came up with the ontology. It's a digital twin or a clone of a company's operations. All of the company's disconnected data points are organized into specific categories of objects, actions, properties, and links. While data lakes collate information into endless, incomprehensible rows of text and numbers, the ontology organizes it into real-world terms that people can actually understand. When a user logs into Palantir's interface, they don't see dense spreadsheets or lines of abstract code. They see intuitive visual ecosystems of interconnected nodes. A hospital administrator might see objects labeled as bed or patient, with links connecting them together. It helps them visualize patients moving through their facilities and feel more in control of their operations. A military commander will see labels like target, drone, and munitions, making it much easier for them to plan their next steps based on real battlefield data. In short, the ontology brings data to life. It gives it meaning, making it easier to understand and far more valuable for the people and entities that need it. This is why Palantir's own executives have described the company's platforms as operating systems. It's not something you use on top of your systems, but something that sits underneath everything else, connecting it all together. Everything gets stitched together into a single live model of reality. This military-grade logic was theoretical for the civilian world. That was until a global catastrophe forced the private sector to adopt it. Chapter 4. Operation Warp Speed. The civilian proof. Today, Palantir is one of the biggest businesses in the world. But for the first decade of its operations, very few people had ever even heard of the company. It mainly existed in the classified sector, where it was seen as a specialized tool with a specific purpose, helping military intelligence and counterterrorism agencies find threats and prevent tragedies. In 2013, the company's client list was short, but it was stacked with some of the most powerful agencies in the world: the NSA, FBI, CIA, US Air Force, Marine Corps, even West Point. Then came another pivotal moment in modern history that would shape the future of Palantir and the entire world as we know it: the COVID-19 global pandemic. As a new deadly virus swept across the planet, the United States government was faced with one of the most complex logistical challenges of all time: Operation Warp Speed. The objective was to distribute literally hundreds of millions of doses of the highly volatile and temperature-sensitive COVID-19 vaccine. It's impossible to overstate the enormity of this challenge or the quantity of data involved. The vaccines had to move at the right times to the right places and reach the right people who needed them the most. Much of that data was spread out across other systems and silos that weren't just separate but historically incompatible with one another. But Palantir provided a solution: Tiberius. Designed specifically for the Department of Health and Human Services, or HHS, for managing the logistics and distribution of the COVID-19 vaccines, Tiberius integrated data feeds from 50 states, 8 territories, and thousands of private pharmacies. It was effectively responsible for merging 50 different jigsaw puzzles into a single image, all in real time. This was the moment of truth for Palantir. It was time to shine and prove that it wasn't merely for military applications, but it could also deliver unprecedented value to the civilian economy as well. The company passed with flying colors. Tiberius did exactly what it set out to do, combining public health, demographic, and inventory data from numerous agencies, states, and private partners. It provided the necessary insight and tools for jurisdictions to track shipments, prevent bottlenecks, and organize their allocations of the vaccine. It tracked every vial, from the production plant to the patient's arm, overseeing the distribution of nearly 1 billion doses in total. This was just the start of Palantir's hot streak. While Tiberius proved the company's software could save lives at scale, its next deployment proved it could also take them with unprecedented speed. Chapter 5: The 3-Minute Kill Chain. Scouts identify a potential enemy target. Drones are dispatched to confirm the target's identity and pinpoint its exact location. They monitor its movement in real time, while appropriate armaments are selected to take the target out. Command issues the order, the chosen weapon is fired, the target is dead. This is an example of the kill chain, the sequence of events that make up a standard military strike. In the past, those events could take hours or even days to play out. Those relatively lengthy time frames were largely down to data-related issues. It took time for the information to travel between systems and people, which delayed decisions. It gave targets time to escape or disappear from radar screens. But on the battlefields of Eastern Europe, the kill chain timeline has been dramatically reduced because of Palantir. The Russian invasion of Ukraine presented Palantir with an opportunity that aligned with its original military-oriented ambitions. Ukraine was a much smaller country with a much weaker army than its opponent. In a conventional conflict, experts estimated it had almost a 0% chance of success. The only way it was going to survive, let alone have any chance of winning the war, was by rewriting the rules of engagement. Palantir made that possible. It gave Kyiv software that allowed it to reduce the kill chain to less than 3 minutes. The entire loop of identifying and eliminating an enemy asset now occurs faster than the time it takes to microwave a frozen meal. The way it does this, in many ways, is similar to how it was used for Operation Warp Speed. Palantir's platform automatically receives, processes, and unifies data from a diverse range of military sources. It receives drone feeds, thermal sensors, encrypted radio communications, and satellite images. The system is constantly collating, centralizing, and automatically analyzing that data. It then helps operators identify targets, highlight anomalies, and decide on the most appropriate action to attack. It does this while keeping in mind an array of additional factors, such as real-time weather conditions and ammunition inventory levels. It's like an all-in-one military mission control system, and it does this without ever fully taking over the kill chain process. And that's an important distinction. People have long feared that AI is destined to replace human decision-makers in the military. It'll usher in a new era of warfare in which AI agents are battling it out with one another. In reality, Palantir's platform is more of a human-in-the-loop system. The AI's role is to drown out the noise of excess information, feeding humans the precise data points to make 1,000 informed decisions per hour rather than 10. But this type of war-speed decision-making was never going to stay exclusively on the battlefield. Corporations wanted that exact same power over their markets. Chapter 6: The Corporate Nervous System. By this point, Palantir's platform wasn't merely a pipe dream or potential success. It was a proven solution with an impressive track record of successes in both defense and national crisis management. The only question left was where it would be deployed next, and the answer soon appeared: the retail sector. Pivoting to the private sector, Palantir extended the same predictive operational logic technology into the day-to-day workflows of Coles, a major Australian supermarket chain. Holding a 27% market share, this is one of the biggest names in the Australian grocery market. Its executives intend to cement the firm's status by incorporating Palantir's technology to streamline the workforce and inventory management. And that's exactly what happened. Palantir's platform now processes 10 billion rows of data on a daily basis across over 840 Coles stores. To put that into perspective, that's more than enough data points to give every single person on the planet their very own personalized shopping list every day. By combining historical data like past sales trends and purchasing patterns with live operational information, Palantir's program lets store managers react in real time. Staffing shifts get adjusted, deliveries get rerouted and optimized. It dictates how a store runs, moment by moment, right down to the smallest detail. But the company didn't stop there. It continued to spread its roots across the globe, seeking out new opportunities and additional industries to expand into. In the United Kingdom, Palantir's technology was rolled out throughout the NHS to deal with backlogs and streamline patient waiting lists. It consolidated patient records and other information, like consultant schedules and operating room availability, into a single, unified engine. As a result, the Chelsea and Westminster NHS Trust subsequently reported a 28% reduction in inpatient waiting lists after switching to Palantir Foundry. That's the equivalent of shrinking a line of 10,000 waiting people down to just 7,200. It's an impressive statistic, and one that Palantir has since highlighted as a proven metric of its platform's impact. However, the British Medical Journal has since questioned this figure's validity. It raised the question of whether this reduction was entirely down to Palantir or the result of a broader range of factors, like post-pandemic resets. Either way, the core structural trend is clear to see. From grocery stores to hospitals, more and more industries and institutions are embracing Palantir's predictive policing logic. And when that happens, when supermarkets and clinics plug their entire existence into Palantir's brain, a new permanent problem emerges. Chapter 7: The Ontology Trap. The reason Palantir's platform is able to roll out so swiftly and seamlessly comes down to something called the Artificial Intelligence Platform AIP Bootcamp. In the past, selling large-scale enterprise software to Fortune 500 companies or nationwide organizations was a long, drawn-out process. It could involve sales cycles lasting anywhere from 6 to 9 months. There were endless marketing meetings, sales presentations, technical consultations, security reviews, and more. Through its AIP bootcamps, Palantir managed to condense that process down to 5 days. Here's how it works. Palantir invites an organization's engineers and executives into an intensive 5-day integration program. During that period, the organization's data is gathered from an array of fragmented streams and into the singular AIP platform. Palantir software then constructs a working, fully functional ontology of the business by the end of the week. The client can walk out the door with a customized, entirely operational AI interface that can seemingly solve problems they've been struggling with for years. It's hardly surprising, then, that so many companies finish their bootcamps believing they've made the smartest investments for their futures. But this ultra-rapid development cycle conceals a secret trap. The moment an institution agrees to map its workflows, teams, and logistics into Palantir's ontology layer, something subtle happens. It stops just being another external tool and starts becoming the structure everything else is built on. From that point on, the business is effectively locked into the Palantir ecosystem for good. Any workflows, AI models, or executive decisions it makes or deploys will be built on top of the ontology itself. So let's say that a company decides it wants to terminate its contract with Palantir a few months down the line. It can't just export its data and walk away, because even though Palantir doesn't own that data, it owns the logic, the context, and the connections that make it make sense. It operates the vast data governance system that the company has come to rely on. Migrating away from that would effectively be like trying to remove someone's entire central nervous system. In short, Palantir has created a system in which it can control the operations of the world's most powerful institutions. And why are we allowing one company to hold this much power? Because we no longer have a choice. Chapter 8. The Complexity Gap. The Root Cause. Some companies rise to the top of the rankings through a mixture of smart marketing, aggressive sales tactics, or even political favoritism. And while Palantir benefited from aggressive Washington lobbying and early political alliances, the deeper reason behind its rise isn't political at all. It's down to a problem that's been building across modern society for decades: the complexity gap. Technology has evolved at a faster rate than people are able to keep up with. The sheer speed and volume of global data has utterly outpaced our ability to process it all. It doesn't matter how intelligent someone is or how much experience they have, they're still constrained by the limits of human biology. No one can comprehend the countless data points and real-time variables endlessly shifting across global networks. The tools we use to deal with data are no longer good enough. There's only so far that you can push outdated database architectures and Excel spreadsheets, after all. If humanity continued down that path without any changes, the consequences could be catastrophic. The volume and complexity of data continues to grow, and our ability to make sense of it all continues to diminish. It adds up to systemic blindness and unparalleled operational inefficiencies. In effect, society's rapid rate of progress has created a terrifying necessity for some sort of AI orchestration layer to oversee everything. We need help to manage it all and maintain the massive logistical networks we rely on every day. Palantir is that layer, and that's what makes it so much more than a corporate vendor selling a helpful but operational piece of software. Instead, it's become a fundamental facilitator of Western society as we know it, a deeply embedded cog in the modern data machine. It's what stops modern systems from buckling beneath the weight of their own data. And if you remove it, the entities and industries it powers won't simply slow down or lose a little of their efficiency. While they wouldn't completely collapse, they would suffer a massive drop in efficiency. And this brings us to the ultimate moral question posed by the man who built it all. Chapter 9. The Philosopher King. While Palantir actually had 5 co-founders, Alex Karp has emerged as the enigmatic and often controversial figurehead of the company. Karp is something of an outlier in Silicon Valley circles. He's not a lifelong tech enthusiast, nor is he a proponent of the belief that big tech is destined to make the world a better place. Instead, he has a more Hobbesian worldview and has argued that the world is a dangerous place. It's filled with near-constant geopolitical friction, with the threat of war and collapse never too far away. To combat and counteract those dangers, Karp argues, software like Palantir is a vital necessity. He believes it's perhaps the most important weapon for defending Western democratic values and preventing complete systemic collapse. His defense of Palantir ties into a broader philosophical question facing society today. What happens when humans can't keep up anymore? Is a constantly watching, constantly optimizing shadow AI layer a form of quiet authoritarian control? Or is it the only thing preventing modern society from plunging into chaos? Karp would argue for the latter, claiming that we're already past the point of worrying about individual privacy or data-driven states. Instead, we must choose between either human-led chaos or AI-managed order. This, he argues, is the reality we've made, and it's the one we must adapt to. In our pursuit of making everything faster, smarter, more efficient, and more profitable, we've forged a reality that is far too complicated for human minds to manage alone, forcing us to hand over the keys to a machine we can never unplug. Palantir's effect can be felt all over the world, but it isn't alone. There are more shadow entities that affect our lives on a daily basis. Find out more in The Company That Secretly Owns Everything to see how BlackRock actually does. Or watch this instead.